Earning only $750 a month is like a college student's allowance. Even students working at bars make more. Having a low-income wife is a disgrace. Maybe you should divorce her so our son can find a better wife. After all, he's the ultimate triple threat. My mother-in-law keeps making snide comments after seeing a pay stub, but it's not actually my pay stub. My name is Amanda. I'm a 32-year-old nurse, and I've been married to John for 5 years. We met at a college club, started dating, and eventually got married. We met at a party when he was a medical student, and I was a nursing student. John hasn't passed the medical licensing exam after failing twice and taking 3 years off. He is currently working part-time and studying hard for the exam. I'm working as a full-time nurse, so I'm the primary breadwinner. He's not the type to brag about making money in cosmetic surgery and posting pictures of a $468,020 Rolls-Royce on social media. He's serious about reading accounts of people who've lost family members to illness, checking the number of people affected by infectious diseases daily, and reading literature on Japan's healthcare system. I respected him even though he wasn't a doctor yet. He genuinely wanted to become a doctor who saves his patients, so I didn't abandon him despite his lack of income and entering his 30s. He kept the fact that he wasn't a doctor yet a secret from his parents. Sorry, my mom is too nosy. It's fine, I support you so you don't have to worry about your parents. Live your life the way you want. This is short term. That's why it remained a secret. The reason it wasn't discovered was that he worked at night as a security guard at the hospital where I worked, so he was technically employed there. He had knowledge and could obtain information from my stories on the job. No one suspected he wasn't a doctor yet because he could talk like one. So to his seldom seen in-laws, I said, yes, patients really like him. I believe that while cruel lies hurt people, kind lies sometimes save them. Telling a patient, you have 3 months left and there's no chance of recovery, is a countdown. It's worse than saying, you look good today, and you ate a lot. That's how people are. On the other hand, my mother-in-law, who is the complete opposite of my serious and honest husband, has a very harsh personality. She's the typical overbearing mother-in-law. She looks down on me for being a mere nurse married to her son, the doctor. There must have been so many better options, like a beautiful doctor in dermatology. I always apologize and bow my head when she talks like that. I wholeheartedly support him in his pursuit of becoming a doctor, but at this point, he's just a high school graduate with extensive medical knowledge working part-time. He's not even a medical intern. But my husband is genuinely grateful to me, always saying, thank you for everything. I silently supported him. In fact, I'm also very busy with work. Our combined income was barely enough to make ends meet, but it couldn't be helped. I didn't care much about money when I entered this field because I genuinely admired Florence Nightingale. Currently, I'm a nurse in internal medicine, the most demanding field in terms of workload. The thought of wanting more money hasn't even crossed my mind. As long as we can live, eat, and stay healthy, that's enough. Isn't that ultimately what life's about? Despite the fact that I'm supporting my husband's living expenses and tuition, my mother-in-law goes around the neighborhood saying, my son is a doctor and earns well. In the first place, if he were a serious doctor, he wouldn't want his mother to brag about his income, good or bad. But my mother-in-law doesn't care and only talks about money, money, money. As her son, he has no choice but to silently endure it. She is completely unaware that he is actually working as a security guard in uniform at the hospital instead of walking briskly in a white coat like she brags about. Even if he were walking briskly in a white coat, it's not something to brag about and gossip about. I understand the feeling, but it should be restrained. I was worried that my husband's mental state might be affected and that he might fail the medical licensing exam because he's barely hanging on to becoming a doctor. If he ends up spending his entire life as a security guard after sticking it out for this long, it would be a shame. Moreover, to put it mildly, his personality is well suited for a doctor. His only weakness seems to be his kindness. That's why my mother-in-law speculates and says things like, my son makes $373,000 a year. For him, knowing that's false only adds more pressure. I once gently voiced my disapproval about it. I think it would be better for the patients if you didn't talk so much about his job because it might cause problems. After all, if you think about it from the opposite perspective, would you want to go to a doctor whose mother is constantly boasting about her son when you're sick? But my mother-in-law doesn't care. Shut up, you're just a nurse. You should be grateful that you could marry a doctor. It's luckier than winning the $3 million lottery. Money can't buy status, you nursing school graduate. She spews such verbal abuse. Yes, I'm sorry. Thank you for allowing me to marry John. I respect him both as a doctor and as a person, so please just leave him alone. You're so annoying. We can still make him divorce you and remarry. It would be pitiful if our future grandchild inherits your low IQ blood. This is beyond harassment. It's close to a violation of human rights. But I kept quiet. Somehow, compared to saving the patient's life or a sense of mission in my work, my mother-in-law's sarcasm seemed very trivial. I didn't really take her seriously. But as those days continued, that day finally came. In fact, my in-laws' house is a 30-minute express train ride from our house, so we don't visit each other much. I'm busy with work, so I wasn't around them much, which is why this lie has been working. However, I don't know if she was bored or just lost her patience, but my mother-in-law showed up at our house unannounced. What a cramped house. Why does my pride and joy of a son have to live in such a poor-looking house? She exclaimed. Looking at the row of medical books, she narrowed her eyes and said, "Well, he is my son, after all," and took a picture with her phone. But most of the books were for the national medical exam, so I was secretly nervous. Since this year's books were there, it would normally give away that he's still a student. My vital signs were in danger of betraying me, but I did my best to deceive her. Mother-in-law, I'm sorry. We're both quite busy with work, so we haven't had time to find a bigger place, especially lately. I casually urged her to go home, but then she began going through my home of all things. Hey, what's with these weird dishes? If you're a doctor, you should buy Wedgwood. Yes, I'm sorry. They're from the dollar store. What did you say? Dollar store? I'm throwing them away. No, we couldn't afford luxuries because we were spending money on my husband's textbooks and tuition, so we cut costs on things like plates that didn't affect our simple meals. As long as we can serve food on them, it's fine. For now, passing the exam is the most important thing. My husband was, by chance, working as a security guard at the hospital at the time. It was a good thing he wasn't home. I didn't want to see him hurt, so I planned to get my mother-in-law to leave while he was at work. But she didn't stop rifling through our things. I'm going to throw away these clothes that look like a student's. If you're a doctor, you should buy high-end branded clothes. My husband's favorite clothes were thrown away. And then, what is this? A piece of junk watch? If you're a doctor, buy a luxury watch. She threw it away, seemingly unaware of the convenience of a smartwatch. The belongings of his that were being thrown away one after another were bought with the little money he had earned. He would have preferred to be in an OR treating patients instead of standing outside with his pride in tatters, but he was working hard for the sake of his dreams and for the sweat he had shed. But there was no stopping her now. It's because he married a poor girl that you have a poor life, even though he's a doctor. It's a wonder you don't live in a tower mansion. Unbelievable. I was thinking of going shopping together and at least getting you to buy me a bag or something. Statement was ultimately despicable. I had no choice but to point out that what my mother-in-law was expecting from my husband, student or not, was fundamentally different than how we really lived. I was a fellow medical professional. Gold digging for a doctor was out of the question. Mother-in-law, I don't mean to be forward, but he's not that extravagant. Our current lifestyle suits us well. I conveyed this casually, but my mother-in-law wouldn't budge. You're so annoying. Do you have any idea how hard he worked to get into medical school? We've been waiting to recoup his upbringing and tuition fees, and it's because of you that we're in this mess. Don't be ridiculous. My mother-in-law, increasingly heated, didn't stop searching my house. She rummaged through not just the kitchen but also every closet, discarding anything cheap. And then, unbelievably, she began to open the clear cases where we kept our utility bills, mail, and other paperwork. That's when she found the pay stubs. They were marked with $750 and $2.25. Despite my husband's name being clearly written on them, she either didn't notice or couldn't read the writing, and she screamed, $750? What do you mean, $750? You nurse, that's not my son's daily wage. Even anesthesiologists make $750 a day, and you're the wife of an internist making only $750. Are you slacking off at work or what? She began to go insane. That's why you're living in such poverty. You're a money sucker, huh? Barely working as a nurse and deceiving the doctor. You're just a part-time nurse because it sounds good. $750 is nothing, so quit already. That money was earned by him enduring younger doctors passing him by without even a glance, biting his lip and working in the gaps between his study hours for a very low daily wage. It was by no means the same with or without it. I thought it was a very pure number. But my mother-in-law's madness wouldn't stop, and finally, the worst happened. You're a poor, luck-bringing wife. Divorce quickly. At that moment, I heard the front door slam shut. My husband had returned home from his part-time job. His face froze when he saw his clothes and watch, which had been cruelly stuffed into a trash bag. He began to silently and carefully pick them up one by one. But my mother-in-law said this. John, I don't mean to be harsh, but please divorce this wife of yours. Why did you, with your high education, high income, and tall height of nearly 6 feet, choose such a pathetic woman? I'm so sad, and she only earns $750. My husband remained silent. I couldn't tell what he was thinking with his tightly pursed lips. My mother-in-law laughed and added, I'll bring the divorce papers for you. Leave this dusty room and this disinfectant-smelling woman behind and remarry a better woman. You're a doctor. Remarrying is a given. Then my husband slowly stood up and finally said, Mom, I've been keeping quiet about this, but I'm not a doctor yet. Huh? I'm sorry for hiding it, but I haven't passed the national exam yet. And about that $750. For some reason, my mother-in-law was so surprised that she turned to me for help. I don't understand what he's saying. The $750 payslip is yours, right? I decided there was no use hiding it anymore and replied, No, it's not mine. My husband chimed in. That's my salary for my part-time job. That can't be. You're lying, right? I'm not lying. It's true. I'm not a doctor yet. I failed the national exam twice. My mother-in-law, shocked to find out her son was not a doctor yet, suddenly started acting strangely. She slipped on some newspaper she had scattered earlier while rummaging through her house and fell to the floor. Help me. She slid and fell but managed not to hit her head by quickly putting her arm out. However, her right arm, the dominant one, broke with a loud snap. It was most definitely a fracture. My husband and I quickly treated her and took her to the hospital, where we guided her to the orthopedic department. But my husband said, Mom, I'm sorry, but please don't come to our house anymore. And I don't want you to think of me as your son anymore. My mother-in-law was trembling from the shock of it all, but my husband continued. I knew you were bragging about me, but I put up with it. I felt guilty for lying. But when you insulted the money I worked so hard to earn, that was too much. But I never would have guessed you weren't a doctor. It doesn't matter if I'm a doctor or not. Do you think I'm studying just to say I earn $750 a day? I'm an adult, and it seems like we can't reconcile our differences in values, so let's cut ties. And so it seemed that my husband really decided to sever his ties with his mother. My mother-in-law, who had found her only purpose in life boasting about her son, seemed to be completely disheartened. Nowadays, she stays cooped up in her house, apparently too embarrassed to face her neighbors. That same year, my husband successfully passed the medical licensing exam. Though he was a bit older, he started working as a newly minted resident physician and shone brightly, never forgetting to show kindness, such as offering tea to the security guards. Our days became very peaceful and happy. If she had just waited a few more months, my mother-in-law's dream would have come true, and she could have seen him in his white coat. It's really a pity, but she brought it upon herself.